Welcome to the Conscious Radio Network. Become enlightened, have fun, and tell all your friends and family to share with everyone they know. You can watch us on YouTube and Rumble while following us on Facebook, or find us on X, Instagram, and TikTok. Our podcasts can be found on Libsyn, iHeart, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and more. Most of all, remember to go to our official website at consciousradionetwork.com for past episodes, future shows, and scheduling. We also want to welcome our international audience. Don't stop now. Enjoy the community. Subscribe or follow today.
This is the Conscious Radio Network.
Good day, everybody, wherever you might be on a spaceship we call Earth. Welcome to Conscious Radio Network's The Seance Podcast. I'm your host, Reverend Dr. Paul Mekas. If this is your first time tuning in, please click like, subscribe, comment, share, and also don't forget to listen wherever you listen to your podcasts. Today, joining us, Jeremy McDonald, a mindset mastery coach, quantum healer, Reiki Master, and best-selling author with more than 25 years experience bridging the corporate and spiritual worlds. He's the executive producer of major metaphysical events and host of Mystic Dialogue on Ethereal TV. Jeremy blends practical strategies with deep spiritual wisdom, helping people clear old blocks, align with their soul, and step into their authentic power. Let's welcome to the seance, Jeremy McDonald.
Thank you, Dr. Mekas, for having me here. And it's good to see you again.
Good to see you again. Yes. For those who are watching or listening, we got back from a very awesome cruise. So I can vouch for your production.
Yeah, that was a good time. And it was a family we built, a community.
Yes.
So I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Great event.
So how did... Let's take our audience back. How did this start for you? How did you get into this metaphysical, working in this metaphysical world, starting back into the corporate?
Yeah, so that's a good story because it started honestly with my mother. So I think like you and I, we share somewhat of a similar thing with our mothers, where I watched X-Files, all that kind of stuff with her as well. And so I think you and your mom did that and had an interest in that. But my mother had went to a women's psychic development course, and probably we're talking like 1994, 1995, something like that. I was probably like 20, 21, maybe 23 at the most. And I thought she was crazy, to be quite honest with you. I was like, Mom, what are you doing? What are you doing going to that? That stuff is not real, all that kind of stuff. And she said, but it's more real than, and she goes, in our family, we have a history of this kind of stuff. And talked about my great grandmother living in Chicago. My mother lived in Minneapolis at the time. And she was pregnant with me. And my great grandmother wrote her a letter, because back in the 70s, you didn't just pick up the phone. You wrote an actual letter and you dropped it in the snail mail, and it was mailed to you. And it basically said, I know you're in trouble. I don't know what it is, but I just want you to know that I love you and I'll always be here for you. And I don't know what that was. She goes, Jared, she had to have known something. And the fact that nobody knew I was pregnant, it was an indicator. Not even my mother, my grandmother, or her mother, but my grandmother. Yeah. And so she started telling me these stories. And so then I had gotten a reading from a friend of ours, or not a friend of ours, but a friend of our sister. And they were so dead on. I thought I swore up and down my friend had told her stuff. And he didn't. And then it came into getting a Reiki session, and it just snowballed. And then finally one day I'm sitting down with my mother's best friend, and he taught me how to use a pendulum, taught me how to bless things, and it just kept on snowballing. And I got curious, because one of the things about me is I'm very curious. And I'm either curious because I want to prove it wrong, or I'm curious because I'm genuinely interested. And so this happened to be because I started having these things happen. And then I started looking back at my life and realizing, man, all these things have been happening all my life. My mother she's onto something.
Yeah.
She's not crazy. And so maybe I'm a little crazy. And so it just snowballed from there. And then it's spiritually how you grow. You start getting more confirmation and more confirmation. And then you start getting a lot more secure in your understanding of what you're experiencing. Then for me, a lot of the things I learned from my own meditation and my own experiences. So I even started coming up with my own words for things because I didn't know what to call them.
Yeah.
And then I learned about the clairs, and then I learned about energy, and then I learned about frequency, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's been quite the extraordinary. It's been now, I'm 50, get ready to turn 52. I got into this when I was probably 23.
Yeah.
So now it's over 25 years now. Yeah. And then corporate just ran right along with that. The interesting thing about being in corporate, I would get frustrated because I had to be in corporate, but I was here. I was a learning and development professional. And so what am I learning? I'm learning about how people learn. I'm learning how the dynamics of how people absorb information. And then I started, because I believe that everything happens for a reason, I started blending the worlds together. If this happens energetically and metaphysically, and then this happens to education and how people absorb information, we're just using different words.
Yeah.
And Carl Jung was the great mystic, and he would observe things and start to understand why psychologically they did them, but also metaphysically why things happen. And then I just started looking at empowering my own life, and then realized that it was working. And I don't know about you, but I've been starting to notice that as I make decisions and as I start to interact in certain parts of my life, the confidence is there that I didn't have before. And that little voice in my head, that little voice of doubt, is a lot less pronounced in my mind and in my heart than it was even 5 years ago. And so these principles that I've been studying for 25, 26, 27, 28 years now is really, there's something significant to it. So now, this many years later, I think, thank you, Mom, for taking me on this journey. You weren't crazy. Thank you for introducing me to it.
Yeah. We evolve into, like they say, that cliche, it's like the older you get, the wiser you get.
Yeah.
I feel it. I recognize it. But at the same time, I go, I just think it's an evolution.
Yeah.
As we age in this body, we just understand and recognize things as what they really are, and understand, okay, that's not real. That's not real. Okay, that's genuine. We start, and at the same time too, we start to move inward.
Yeah. Yeah. We stop going out to look for our happiness. And so I, like everybody else, went to look for love. And what's the old song? Looking for love in all the wrong places.
Yep.
We're all doing that. We're all looking for love.
Yep.
Anywhere except for inside of ourselves. And when you mentioned we got to find love inside of yourself, but people think you're nuts. And so just now, over the past few years, people are starting to say, well, you have to love yourself first. And they're using these words. And I'm like, but do you know what that means? Mm-hmm. And they're like, yeah, I've done the inner work. What does that look like to you, the inner work? And so, because there is a voice, one of my favorite stories, I'm actually on my next book already. And I'm starting in the story of the two wolves. I'm sure you know this. It's a Cherokee story about grandfathers talking to grandson and telling about there's two wolves. One is full of anger and resentment and greed and all that kind of stuff. And the other one's full of compassion and love and empathy and that kind of stuff. And the grandchild says, which one wins? And he said, the one you feed. And so if you're constantly feeding that envy or greed or the needing more and that kind of stuff, and instead of feeding the compassion and love and empathy, and that's directed towards you to start off with, because as you direct it towards yourself, it flows out to other people. Then naturally good people are going to come to you in your life. And I think honestly that cruise we were just on is an example of that, because the connections we made were tremendous. And that was actually, to me, one of my favorite cruises, and I've done quite a few of them now. And I really do feel I'm connected with a lot of people that I've done on cruises with, but I know I'm going to stay connected with them as well.
Yeah, that healing circle was amazing.
Oh, was it?
That was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think pretty much most of everybody participated that day. And I did something that I wasn't expecting to do, was giving readings for everybody.
I remember that.
I was like, waiting until they're getting ready to go up, and I'm like, I got a reading for you. Just
Yeah,
like,
because you weren't going to give a reading.
exactly. I wasn't. That was just one thing, and then Spirit came in and was like, I want you to do this.
It's funny, I had stopped doing readings or healings for a couple of years, and I was putting on this cruise called the Waves of Light. It was one of my very first cruises, and I had actually stepped aside as one of the people organizing it just because of time and everything that was going on in my life. But I ended up being still a passenger on it. And one of the girls on the cruise, one of the leaders, she said, "Get up here. You're not going to sit out there in the corner." And I was like, I don't know, but I was in this mode where I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing this anymore. I'm sure we've all been here before. I'm not going to do this anymore. I don't want to do it anymore. And there's actually a picture on my website where she pulled me up on this healing circle. And I think I told you about this, is that my mother's hands, she put them into my hands. My mother's on the other side.
Yeah.
And we did a healing on this man, all of us. And he had a miraculous healing.
Wow.
And so that was the first step. And there is something that we always intellectually understand. A lot of us intellectually understand things. But until you have some major experience, because people learn through experience, then it doesn't become something that you can feel. It's hard for you to have a point of reference in order to feel something. And so one of the key principles in healing is that let the energy go where it needs to go, and that you are just a vessel of the energy.
Yep.
And it's not you doing the healing. You're a facilitator of the divine energy that flows through you. And the person is the one that's receiving the energy. They're actually doing the work along with the divine energy. And so that was one of those moments where I realized that was the energy flowing through me. It's really cool. The picture's awesome, all that kind of stuff. But as soon as you let your ego get involved, that's where you start to fall out of this energy. And what's really cool about that is, I'm sure like a lot of people that do healing work or even psychic work or intuitive work and all that kind of stuff, they'll be like, is this really working? There's a part of them when they first started that was there. And I used to work in Ybor City. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that here in Tampa. I used to do readings when I was probably 26 years old, called the Seventh Heaven Psychic Cafe in Ybor City. And I remember I would give these readings on Friday and Saturday nights to a bunch of drunk people. And it would be, and they would be like, oh, you're really good. But then I'd still in my mind be like, oh, am I good?
Yeah.
That's because a part of you is trying to own that it was you instead of your soul or the essence of the divine working through you. And Edgar Cayce said it perfectly when he said, a psychic is one that it can talk to your soul and to other souls. And I think that's really powerful, because the other thing that psychics and healers do is they read from their own energy. And when they read from their own energy, they get themselves sick.
Yeah.
Little a tangent there, but.
And two is I probably didn't I wasn't expecting to do it, but it was the right energy. Yeah. The energy was right. It was the sacred space that we all created. And that's when the time became perfect for it. And it allowed the energy to flow. And as soon as I got the information, I'm like, okay, yes, I got to share this.
That was powerful. Thanks for all you did. And your presentation was fantastic. So
thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book, your latest book, and it's called The Sovereign Mindset. What does a sovereign mindset mean to you in simplest terms?
Simplest terms is it's when your energy, when your physical body, mind, and soul is in flow with the divine energy that is you, and with your higher self, whatever terms you want to come up with for it. And when you start aligning yourself and operating in that energy and letting go, the old saying is let go and let God, but it's really let go and allow that divine flow to flow through you, like we were just talking about.
Yeah.
And so when you operate in that sense, miracles happen. It's just that simple. Now, on a physical sense, it feels like a miracle, but on a metaphysical sense, it's really just energy flowing and frequency when you're in alignment with the frequency that you're trying to create. And one of the things I talk about in the book is I don't poo completely the law of attraction, but I do say that it doesn't work exactly the way we're told. Positive thoughts don't create. However, we do attract who we are. So on the inside, if you know that things are going to be taken care of exactly in the right and perfect time, And you know that when you put something out there, it'll either come, you ask and you shall receive, it'll either come. And if it doesn't come, it's because there's something better in store for you. And so we are trying to attract or create with our own ego, so to speak, as opposed to our heart and our divine energy. So really what this book came up is because I kept on having these experiences that I don't even talk about all of them in the book, but a few of the major ones I talk about. And I was like, how is this keeps on happening? And so finally it just clicked one day and it just started pouring out of me. We have a sovereignty. And when we take responsibility for our own lives and our own thoughts and our own feelings and our own energy, then we can start to take back our own sovereignty. And as well as I do in this world, there's an energy that's trying to take our sovereignty.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily get into those subjects as much as anymore, but it's more about, if you understand who you are, you're going to know exactly where you need to be, what you need to do, how you need to do it, and what you need to say. And it's because you're going to be operating with your higher self and that divine energy that's within you, that spark.
Yeah. Now, I think here, what is a daily practice that helps you stay aligned and to your authentic self?
One of the biggest things that I do is I try not to even say this word anymore, meditation. I just say I hang out with myself every day.
Right.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Because if I say meditation, somebody watching is going to be like, I can't do it. And I'm going to challenge you. What I want you to do is hang out with yourself every day. In other words, no distractions. Put this thing down. As a matter of fact, put it in the other room. Put your remote control for your TV somewhere where you can't grab it. And I want you to just sit on your couch or on your porch or whatever. And I just want you to be quiet. And I want you to ponder your day and breathe in through your nose, out through your mouth. And what this is going to do is it's going to start relaxing your energy enough to where you can start pondering how your day went. And this may be 20 minutes, 30 minutes. I now do about 2 hours a day. I take time in the morning, but I mainly take time at night. And that's usually a couple hours. And it's meant for me to start pondering, what were my opportunities for the day? What were things that I needed to do better? What were things that I did great? And what are my intentions tomorrow? And how am I in alignment with my soul and my intentions right now? And so I start asking myself these questions. That social media post that really just ticked me off, did I really need to make that comment? Was it authentic when I made that comment, or was it coming from my knee-jerk reaction? And so was I an observer, or was I involved in the drama? Those are the kind of questions I ask myself. Because one of the things that a lot of spiritual beliefs, and I'm not going to just target any religion here, all of them do this. They try to be perfect. And I hate to break it to you, you're not going to get it perfectly all the time. I wrote a book. I don't get it perfectly all the time. I mess up. As a matter of fact, just this morning, I made a comment on something on Facebook that really just annoyed me. And then afterwards, I was like, man, that was an opportunity. Yeah. I had an opportunity to pause, be the observer, and respond more proactively if I was going to respond. And so what ends up happening in that daily practice is it gives you an opportunity to start changing the inner dynamics inside of you. And when you change those inner dynamics, then you start to get stronger at it. And then you start attracting a world that is more conducive to what you're seeking. So yeah, that was probably a winded answer to your simple answer, but
no, definitely. I mean, it's perfect. And I tell you what, these things, I was just thinking about when you started off with it, putting these things down. You know, it's a double-edged sword, these things. It's okay. Yeah, technology is going to evolve. And something went through my brain. I'm like, could you imagine if when we didn't have these, and I remember when we didn't have these, and yes, I was much younger and I didn't know then what I know now. If I did, you could imagine how much more enlightened we'd be, myself and anybody else, without these things.
Yeah.
These are purposely been put into our society to distract us and pull us away from our authentic selves.
Yeah. And it's going to take and you know what? Thank you. I'm glad that they gave these to us, because I am one of those types of people that I'm like, I will walk right into chaos. And there's a reason for that, because I'm choosing to teach myself how to be the stillness in the storm. And when I can do that, there is nothing. When I saw a quote years ago, and I love these little cliche quotes, but it was a quote that basically said a really strong meditator could have a war and guns going off around them, and they could still maintain stillness.
Yeah.
And so things like my phone, sometimes I'll even put it next to me on purpose, because I know the light's going to flash when somebody texts me, and I'm going to look at it and that kind of stuff. It's an opportunity for me to stay still. The other thing's going to happen when you start hanging out with yourself, meditating, whatever you want to call it, you'll start to get quiet. Your nose will start to itch, or you'll get an itch right here. And what I want you to do is I want you to take another deep breath in and let it all out. And I want you to refocus inward as opposed to giving that attention. And when that goes off, or when one of your neighbors is saying something loudly outside, or there's a Harley Davidson that goes by really loud outside, that's opportunities for you to get even more still. And so I ended up teaching a meditation class out of my house probably 11 years ago. And I remember the weekend I was doing this retreat, my neighbors decided that they were going to cut down limbs on their trees with a chainsaw.
Oh.
And so the people were getting annoyed. I said, "This is great. Don't you think this is great?" And so I really got them to the point where they could barely even hear the chainsaw that was only 10 feet away.
Yeah.
Because they got so quiet inside. I said, when you could get this quiet, imagine how still you can get, because they say it takes 34 seconds to hold a thought in an intention, and then it can create. So if you can hold, without any distractions, the 34 seconds of feeling of health and abundance, or a prayer, or whatever it is you're doing, without letting anything outside of you distract you, that's how powerful you can be.
Wow.
And that's where the sovereign mind starts to come in. So,
yeah. I've never timed it, but I'm going to keep that number noted.
Yeah,
I'm going to do it next time.
I'll hit the timer and I'll just breathe. Now, there's times that I can only get to 5 seconds. And then there's times where I've made it to the 34 seconds. And then you really start to make changes. And when you don't make it to the 34 seconds, don't get upset. Give yourself grace. You know what? Next time it'll be better. I got 5 seconds. I'm going to do it for 8 seconds next time. And focus in on your breathing, because you need breathing for life anyways. So if you can, and then it said, we breathe life into this in Genesis. So when it said that, breathing is a part of creation. And so what ends up happening is we've created all this stuff, and we're like, focusing on these positive thoughts. I'm going to think about this Corvette I'm driving. And that's wonderful. I have no problems with people having nice things. A friend bought me Christian Louis Vuitton boots that I wore on the cruise. And at first I was like, I can't wear these because people are going to think I'm bougie. But who cares? They're boots. And so
those were cool.
They were cool. They were cool. And so that's what happened. The other thing is we get caught up in our judgment. So we're so worried about what they're doing or what they're doing. And if we're in somebody else's garden, our garden needs to be pruned. And so if we stay in our garden and stop worrying about what other people are thinking, that's part of the reasons why you can't maintain 34 seconds, because you're so worried about what other people are thinking.
Man.
And that's one of the things about the sovereign mind. And we talk about, we are living a life based on other people's opinions and other people's programs that have been handed to us. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of it. I don't want to believe other people's rules or ideas and what they think is right anymore. It's none of their business.
Exactly.
As long as I'm not hurting somebody. And that's one of the things that we look at. But you just go on social media and there's always somebody. I said, have a good day one day. And I got a whole bunch of comments about what's so good about it right now in this current climate. I'm like, oh my.
Yeah, I get that. I get that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Before we move forward, for those who are watching are going to see it scrolling on your screen, but where can people find you and what they can expect when they go to your website?
Yeah, so if you go to my website, obviously there, jeremymcdonald.net, And you will find copies of both of my books, but you'll also find videos of me speaking. There's a course on there that I created a couple years ago on how to build your own psychic and healer business. And then I put on these events where there's some of them you can actually buy for kind of a low dollar amount. I've got one with Raymond Moody, and then a bunch of about 25 other speakers called Beyond the Veil. And there's just a whole bunch of information, plus all the links to all my social medias so you can stay connected with me. It's pretty interactive, and there's a lot of things you can get to know about me and connect with me.
Wow. Cool. What are the, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there for the novice. Mostly novice don't listen to or watch the show because when they see the seance, what the type of audience is going to be there.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of myths out there about spiritual growth and stuff. What type of myth out there would you like to debunk for our audience?
My biggest thing is positive thoughts. There's nothing wrong with positive thoughts, but there's a thing called toxic positivity. And when my favorite one is like you say something like, I'll joke around, I'll be like, say something, I'll be like, ooh, need to work on that, Jer. And I'll just be joking around. My hair was out of alignment. And somebody will say, you really need to pay attention to your thoughts. Positive thoughts create. And I'll be like, no, that's not true. And they'll get mad at me. And I'll say, me picking on my hair is not going to create negativity in my life. Trust me, my life is full of good things that happen and also other things that happen. And I'm excited about all of them. And they'll be like, you're excited about things happening? I'm like, yeah, because I'm excited about growth. And so the other one is, and this is not a super popular one in the psychic and metaphysical community, I don't put shields up. I just don't. And because I'm here to transmute energy. So if I you and I walked into some interesting places in the Bahamas.
Yeah.
I kept myself grounded. Jesse had an experience where he was over and his energy started to get a little ungrounded and weird feeling. I'll ground my energy because if I'm in a grounded state and my energy is in balance, our light is so bright that darkness can't get in. So why would I need to put a shield up to protect myself when I have light that literally, when the lights come on, the cockroaches run?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that is something that I've had metaphysical people argue with me about it. And I'm like, I'm not here to argue. I know what works. I've literally walked in complete darkness. And I just make sure my light gets stronger. Now, I had an experience that you know about because it happened on the cruise where I was out somewhere else before, and I was so busy that I didn't get a chance to do what I would that daily ritual that I would do, that 2 hours of spending. And I ended up getting something that happened when my shoulder got thrown out. Like I said, I'm here for growth. So that was a moment for me to say, that was an opportunity. I got ungrounded because I was so excited about what was going on that I was busy. And for that time frame, that very short amount of time frame, I ended up wearing myself out. And so that was an opportunity for me to say, got to pay more attention. As good as I've gotten, it doesn't mean I still need to stay humble.
Yeah.
And so those are opportunities for you to really start to look at that. And so what I would challenge everybody to do is, in the beginning, if you're a novice, you're not going to go walking out into some of the crazy things that we heard about on the cruise and all that kind of stuff. You need to be mindful and go with people that know what they're talking about, like yourself or me or Kevin or other people that were on the cruise like Chris and Sean and stuff like that. But as you start to grow and learn who you are, because you're a divine being, you're not going to have to do that. And that's where I get kind of hung up on some of the things that I feel like we disempower each other by some of the things that we teach. And then when we get caught up in these positive thoughts things, this toxic positivity, we never do our dark night of the soul. We never do our journey into the underworld where we discover all these things about ourselves, because all those things you're pointing fingers out at to other people about, they're in you.
Mm-hmm.
Carl Jung, this is what Carl Jung taught us with the shadow. And there's the ability to do greatness and be greatness inside of you. There's also the part of you that could do very evil and horrible things. And people argue with me about that. And I'll say, let me ask you a question. I'll say, especially to a mother or a father, somebody hurts your child and really hurts them. What's the first thing that's going to come to your mind? Probably, I'm going to kill them.
Yeah.
And if you say that you're not that angry about somebody physically harming your child, you're fooling yourself. And that's where when we get into the frequency and the energy, the power versus force. I don't know if you remember that book, and you get up into these higher frequencies of enlightenment, something happens majorly, or like Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs, something happens, like you lose your job and all your security. You're not going to be operating at that high frequency. And the reality is that up and down energy of going down, because there's an ebb and flow. When you go down, guess what happens? You have to go back up eventually.
Yeah.
That's natural law. There a lot of the misconceptions about, and it's in metaphysics, it's just as bad as it is in Christianity, where people are I call it the love and light movement. Love and light. I'm like, that's wonderful. But when you're love and lighting, why don't you love yourself? And that part of yourself that gets depressed and upset, and face those depressions.
Yeah.
And when you do, that's when you're really going to start transmuting energy in you, and that's natural law. And so those are the things. My biggest thing is if we don't start going and being authentic with, and when I say authentic, I mean facing the cold, hard truths about yourself. I stayed in this relationship too long and it was abusive. I stayed in this job because I felt like I had to out of obligation, and I went against my own soul. And the definition of sin is to miss the mark. If the divine energy and the spirit of God is within you, the temple of God is within you, who are you missing the mark with? Yourself.
Yeah.
Your divine self, not your physical.
Yeah. As I tell people, you got to listen to that voice in your head, man. You got to listen to those voices. Yeah. Your higher self, your spirit, those spirits, your ancestors, whoever is given those signs, your intuition, whatever we call it. It's got many names. So many people just do not pay attention to it. They talk about it. Like, oh, I heard this the other day, I heard that, and whatnot, but it just doesn't seem. It's growing, though. The popularity's growing. I think a lot more people are actually starting to pay attention to it.
I want people to understand all these experiences, that one of the key things I would say in the book is all these things that I've experienced, you're experiencing them too. They may look different. They may have different themes, all that kind of stuff. But you've had miraculous things that have happened in your life. You just don't want to recognize it, or you say, "Oh, that was coincidence," or "Yeah, that was really cool." Or when in my Christian upbringing, they were like, "Oh, that was demonic. That wasn't God." I'm like, seriously? And so those are just those things where I'm like, no wonder why nobody knows who God is, because they've been denying it. They think it's some man in a white flowing beard up in the sky throwing lightning bolts. And I'm like, he's getting a workout, man.
Yeah. Where do you see things going from here in general? See a change, a major shift? Everybody's talking about a shift happening.
Yeah. There is, it depends on who you're talking to too. So sometimes people think there's like a shift to the bad or the worst. And what I do think is that people are waking up. And what I think waking up is waking up to the truth of who they are. So I don't necessarily believe in I woke up to the nefarious things in the world, because when you understand that you're a divine being, and when you really understand that, and you start to get to know that being on a deeper and deeper level on an everyday, every moment basis, that's when you're starting to wake up. You're starting to wake up to who you are. And what you're doing with that, when you're embracing your own sovereignty, is that you're starting to withdraw from the need to have this world spy. If you work a day job, hey, I hate to break it to you, you don't work for that day job. You work for the greatest CEO in the galaxy. It's called the divine energy.
Yeah.
And that energy puts you there for a reason. And so when you surrender that's when you start getting empowered. So what I'm seeing is that people are waking up to their own intuition and hearing that inner voice. And I'm seeing people being more open to energy, and I'm not against allopathic medicine, but what I'm seeing more people look towards alternatives than just automatically putting medications in them. Now, at the end of the day, If they need the medications, take it. However, realize that came into your energy for a reason, not because you had to do it, but because you made a decision to do it on an energetic basis, not necessarily physically consciously, but on a soulful basis. And then when you want to change it, you start working towards that and energetically and changing what's going on in the temple. Like I've lost almost 60 pounds now, and my A1C has dropped down to a level where it's considered to be now pre-diabetic as opposed to diabetic. And my blood pressure today, where normally a year and a half ago was at 185 over, I think it was like 105. Today it was 120 over 71. These things are, that's because when you start changing who you are inside, you start honoring the temple on a deeper level.
Yeah.
And then there's all kinds of things that we do. I mean, when we get upset, some of us go out and drink and we party and we're just having fun. But really, honestly, if you really there's nothing wrong with going out and having a good time. What I'm saying is that there's a point when you realize that I'm avoiding life. And when I realized that I was going out and drinking and I was getting a Myers cocktail, I don't know if anybody knows what that is, but it's an IV full of fluids and vitamins. And I was getting that so that I could go out and drink and not get dehydrated. That's a special kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And then I was spending all this money on drinking that could have been invested into my business, something that actually brings me joy. And that's where you start to realize, wait a second, I'm not following my soul. I'm talking about it. I'm standing on stages and speaking about it. But what ends up happening is you get this on a deeper level as you go. So finally one day I just said, I'm not going to drink anymore. And so for those of you that are out there, you'll through your life and you realize I'm going to put down that Taco Bell taco. And because I don't need it anymore, because I need to take care of this. And it's not just the physical, it's the spiritual and everything else. And then you'll start making better choices, because as you start making better choices for yourself, your inner world, that voice that we're talking about, that soul, starts saying, thank you for choosing me over everything else. And that's when that sovereign mind really starts to merge and it becomes a marriage.
Yeah.
A marriage of the inner world. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's where I was, sorry, that's what the shift that's happening is everybody's getting to this point where they're really starting to realize, wait a second, I don't have to live like this anymore. So
I tell you what, when it comes to discipline, dietary discipline, I didn't realize it was tough to do that on the cruise. Man. I'm like, okay.
You know what? But we were on a cruise, and it's time. It's also give yourself grace because you were on vacation. So I have a friend that's a personal trainer and a health coach, and she said 80% good, 20% bad. She goes, meaning it's okay to live. Mm-hmm. And it's okay to have a cookie or that kind of stuff, but you should be putting more good into you. If you have a negative thought every once in a while, I'm like, or somebody cuts you off in traffic, I'm like, man,
all right.
You're not going to police your thoughts. But what you're going to do is, like I mentioned, at the end of the day, you're going to be like, everything is at choice point. So if you get to start saying, I made that choice to have that cookie. Like, I'll give you an example. Last night I was driving, I went and dropped a friend off, and I was driving home and I was like, man, I really want some McDonald's French fries. And then I was thinking, I really want a quarter pounder with cheese. Now I haven't had one of those in years.
Me neither.
And I was like, just craving it. And finally I had to make a choice. I'm like, no, I'm going to go home. I literally made a really good meal and I'm going to eat that. And so once I got home, it wasn't even a big deal. But that was a choice point. Now, if I would have gotten the McDonald's, what ended up happening is I'd had stomach issues. I'd have probably had bad indigestion all night long. It'd probably spiked my blood sugar and all that other kind of stuff. And then that choice would have created a cause and effect type of consequence.
Yeah.
But I chose differently. And so then I didn't have that. And so that's when your inner world starts saying, thank you for choosing me. So, yeah.
Yeah. So before we wrap up the show, again, where can people find you?
Yeah, so my website's the best way, jeremymcdonald.net, and get to me on Facebook or Instagram. You can find copies of my books. If you really want to connect with me, the best way to get a hold of me is get on my Facebook, message me and say, hey, Jerry, I'd like to connect with you, or, whatnot, or book a session with me. That's one of those things. I have half-hour and 60-minute sessions, and that's one of the best ways. Or you can just follow my stuff, like my YouTube and my TikTok. I post videos and all that other kind of stuff.
Yeah, and they're good. They're really good.
Yeah,
So,
thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So before we close, what do you have as a takeaway, words of wisdom for our audience today?
Yeah, my biggest thing is be good to yourself. And what I mean by that is spend time each day loving yourself and making better choices for yourself. And when you're good to yourself, trust me, like I said, you don't attract what you desire, you attract who you are. So if you love yourself, you're going to attract loving situations. Mm. And that'll really change the dynamics in your life. And start small. Make choices, make small choices for yourself, and it'll change everything.
Yeah, a little bit at a time. Even for those who don't even know how, I can't meditate. Yes, you can. Just got to try.
1 minute. Try 1 minute of breathing, and trust me, and the next day, 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Oof. Jeremy, namaste, my friend. Thank you. Thank you for being on with us today.
Really appreciate it.
And you're welcome. You're welcome. It's an honor. And keep us posted for the next excursion.
Oh, yeah. We've got a lot of them coming up. So now it's spiritheartcruise.com. Right now it still has the old stuff on there. But also go to my website, jeremymcdonald.net, and get on my email list. So.
And for the audience too, for those who follow Conscious Radio Network, you've seen for months at a time leading up to, at least a month or so leading up to the cruise and stuff. We've been posting a bunch of stuff about the cruise. Definitely be doing that again and again.
Yeah, we're looking forward to having you, especially this one we're looking at in Tampa.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
Very, very
brother. I appreciate it.
Thank you
much. Again.
Really appreciate it.
Again. You're very welcome. And thank you, everybody, for watching The Seance on Conscious Radio Network. Until next time, we'll see you then.